So hello, welcome to the Libraries and Libraries breakout session. My name is Michelle Kaczmarek. I'm zooming in from the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, north of the border in Vancouver, British Columbia. And I am the program manager for the Share, Reuse, Repair initiative. So that's a Canadian nonprofit with the goal of kind of bringing local communities and businesses and governments together around this idea of how we can support the development of healthy and creative and thriving circular economies in our local communities across Canada. And I'm particularly excited to be moderating this session because I've just finished up my PhD in Library Archival and Information Studies at the University of British Columbia, where I did work with repair cafes. So I have spent many years trying to explain to people why I'm in a library school talking about repair. And I'm so excited that I get to moderate this session today and we can talk about repair and reuse and tool libraries going on in public library systems. So I'm stoked for that. Today we're going to be hearing from two fantastic people. Firstly, from Dana Dalrymple from the Spokane Public Library. She's the collections and data analysis manager. And then from Sharayah Kinney from Tacoma Tool Library. She's operations manager there and works with, has a partnership with the Tacoma Public Library. So she'll be speaking a little bit about that. And without further ado, I think we're just going to jump straight into it. And I have on my list here that Dana should go first, but if you have a preference, then please override my moderation.
Sounds good to me.
Yep.
Great. So if you have slides, Dana, you should be able to share them now and take it away. And I'm looking forward to learning more about the Spokane Public Library, Library of Things.
Looks like you can see that. So I'm just going to give you a very quick overview of our Library of Things and how we purchase or check out these items. And I've overseen ordering for just about the past couple of years, so I wasn't in on the creation of this collection. So I can give you some insights on how we are using the collection now. So as a background, Spokane Public Library serves the city of Spokane, not the county, which is about 230,000 people. We've got 7 branches, all of which are new or extensively remodeled in the past 3 years. And we also have a strong focus on programming and education. So that's where our big focus is. So our collection, it's a wide-ranging collection, I will say that for sure. So anybody with a valid library card can check it out. Let me move forward here a second. We've got everything from sports equipment to board games, park passes, gardening equipment, seeds, hand tools, sewing machines, sergers, musical instruments, just about a wide variety of things. But people must sign a liability waiver before they can check out a library of things. But there's no membership or ability to pay required as long as you have a valid library card. People are limited to 2 things at a time because we have, limited equipment. It checks out either 1 week, sometimes 3 weeks, depending on how long we think someone's going to need to use a piece of equipment. They're not easily browsable. If you look at the picture here, you can see we kind of have them in cabinets or behind glass. This is partially a loss prevention technique. We do have some shelf cards. So you see an example here, like if you'd like a library of sewing machine, come take this to the desk and then we'll get it. So that helps with browsing a little bit. We need to create more of those. I just sort of noticed them the other day. It's like, oh, these are cool, they exist. And then one of my goals next year is sort of to review the collection to see how we can improve selection, displays, checkout options, things like that. So just a background on how I order for it. So it kind of started, the ideas come from staff and customer requests and what I think is going to work. This whole collection kind of started in 2012 with some energy efficiency kits that were donated by the local power company. We've developed a lot more robust collections since then. sorry, I keep getting off my notes. The things I look at are price. If they're liable to be lost or permanently damaged, I don't like to go over, say, $500, but we've had some grant purchase items, such as video cameras that are more than that. Another thing I look at is durability. It must be durable, able to stand up to multiple people using it, so I can't really get cheap things easily cleaned. So yeah, I can see somebody requesting a paint sprayer, but I know from experience that's really hard to clean, and I don't want to have our frontline staff deal with it when it comes back. Dangerousness is another thing I look at. As much as I'd like to check out a chainsaw, I really can't. That's kind of too much liability, even if you signed off on it. Portability, it needs to come with or fit in a carrying case. We have large items like 14-foot blow-up inflatable, screens, but they've got to be able to be, fit to a backpack so they can be carried out. And then vendors, I admit that we go through Amazon a lot for the low prices and the ability to return an item, but I try to order locally too. Like I just got some tools from one of our local hardware stores. So that's another way to do it. And I'd say the positive of the collections, it broadens the definition of what a library can provide, and it allows them to try something before making a financial equipment. Where if you wanted to make a deck, I just bought some hand tampers and some post hole diggers. This prevents unnecessary waste. There's no financial commitment, so there's no rental fees or memberships. It's really good for publicity if you makes a great social media or video promotion for these things, and it can align with our programs that we do. And the challenges that come with a collection like this with a public library, it's kind of high loss at sometimes. I got the chart here that shows, the 734 items, about a third are missing, 16% are new. We've got about 57% available. And that's not even counting the tote bags, because those are like really high. Like, look, 75% of them are gone. So I'm not even counting those. And they can be expensive for the library or the customer to replace. They can't check out anything else if they lost, a $500 sewing machine or whatever. It can be difficult to store when they're not checked out, especially for their smaller branches. So, how do you store a post hole digger? Some staff would like the items to be stored seasonally, but the snowshoes away in the summer and the gardening equipment, in the winter, store them someplace else. So I'm going to think about that for next year. And then how do we fix something that needs a specialist or needs supplies, such as sewing machines? How often do we need to resupply something like basic thread or batteries, things like that? And how much can we lose of a part of something and it still be usable? And then I'm going to emphasize our processing quite a bit, just because we have basically an expert who's a longtime processor who knows how to put tags on things and figure out how things would be best able to be checked out. So it takes a lot of evaluation to do this. It's her full-time job in a way when she has time to do this. So it can involve things like labeling, where to put the barcode number since we check things out like a regular library book. How do we put a logo on it? Do we have a luggage tag that we need to add? Do we need to buy a carrying case for most items? If it comes with something that's sturdy, great. Otherwise, we've got to buy, a case for the metal detector. We include contents lists for things with lots of accessories or attachments, which includes replacement prices and photos. If something has instructions, we make a copy or even create a QR code label for online instructions. If somebody doesn't know how to do a serger, what's the easiest way for them to learn how in a quick time that they have the equipment? We must figure out where to store extra supplies and keep track of them. Where are we keeping those extra batteries or, thread or whatever? And then how do we track how the items are initially processed and made available? We got to save templates and information for each type of thing, so we don't have to start from scratch every time we order a replacement or similar item. So our processing expert is, that's a big part of her job too, is just keeping track of all of this stuff. And I'm going to show you some examples, that things that she told me she did. So like for the utility bar I just bought, it's got a little barcode here. It's got a luggage tag so that people can check it out and a note, or the crochet hooks that have, this is what's in this set. Or here's the sewing machine. So it's a wheelable bag so that people can easily, take it out of the library without possibly dropping it. And the list of all the stuff that is in this, case. And then just basically, what are some of the other things we do to support do-it-yourselfers and repair, reuse, recycle? So a lot of programming, like I said, that's our big focus. So like our art programmers are having a wrapping paper swap or origami from recycled wrapping paper. We have a community garden at one of our libraries. So they're big into garden programming, like foraging, composting, rain barrel making, etc. And then we're starting to do some Mendit cafes, especially for kids from our environmental education specialists. So that's some of the things we're doing to help support that. And our tools help get people, a way to do that without spending their own money. And that's pretty much it. You can contact me if you want more information, or we can follow up with questions here in a minute. So I will stop sharing here.
Thank you so much, Dana. Let's hold off on questions until the end. So let's go straight over to Sharayah to hear about a different library of things going on in Tacoma.
Yeah. Hi, so I'm Sharayah Kinney with Tacoma Tool Library, and we are located in the Tacoma Public Library. I have some pictures of the outside of the building because I kind of wanted to give you a visualization of we are in the library, but we are not a part of the library. We have a partnership with them. That has been confusing over the years for people, but it also helps because they think book library, tool library, it's helping them. But so the front of the building is on Tacoma Avenue in Tacoma, and then our entrance is on the alley behind it. So we do have a separate entrance, which is just very helpful to help with the people being the confusion between where they're going for the library. And I wanted to give just like a brief history of Tacoma Tool Library. We have been open since March 2016, so we have not always been in the public library. I have actually been around since the beginning, and it was always our wish. We all are like our big dream to be in the public library, so it's really awesome that that happened. But we do have 3 programs. So we do tool lending, we do fix-it nights, and then we also do make it sew. So it's basically like teaching people how to sew and doing sewing workshops. We have 3 part-time staff, 10 board members, and 30 plus active volunteers. So that's just kind of to give you an idea of like a lot of growth has occurred since we moved into the public library. We had been, we've been open for almost 8 years, but just kind of getting the word out and getting people to understand what is a tool library is always, the difficult challenge. But being in the public library just makes people understand what it means. So we basically are partners with Tacoma Public Library. In the space that we moved into, it's the 2nd floor of their main branch. So we moved in the summer of 2021. They actually, so the Tacoma Public Library closed during COVID, and they never fully reopened the main branch anyways. So their bottom floor is what the public library used. And then the 2nd floor actually just had lots of empty shelves, and then the tool library was in a random part of it. So that's kind of how we've been operating for the past few years. But it's been a little bit confusing for people to understand that we're actually in the library. Usually when people enter, they're like, oh, wait, this is where reference used to be. And we're like, yes, that is where reference used to be. And now it's the tool library. But so we moved in March 2021. We have had very, very cheap rent, which I think that is like one of the major benefits of being in the public library. I'm not sure like what other organizations have done, but because we are partnering with them, it is very cheap rent. And then the public library works as kind of like our landlord in a sense, just in the sense that none of our operations overlap. There's nothing about like oversight that overlaps or anything like that. We completely operate as two separate organizations. So yeah, so these were like the three main kind of benefits I wanted to share. I think I've kind of already said the like increased community understanding of what is a tool library. That's been like the biggest thing for people to understand. Also, we have had like major growth being in the public library. So the Tacoma Public Library doesn't like promote the Tacoma Tool Library in the sense of like we're not on their website, we're not on their calendar or anything like that because we're a separate organization, but they do promote us in the sense of like having flyers in there in all of their branches and supporting us like in that way, but just not directly. So we have reached to having over 600 active members. And before that, I think we're kind of around 400. And then the other thing is like just shared resources. There hasn't been like anything maybe directly with shared resources, but being in the library, the staff that we have for Tacoma Tool Library get to interact with the Tacoma Public Library staff. And since we are small staff, it's kind of nice to like get to know other people and have that as a resource. Or if we had a printing issue, we can go downstairs and be like, hey, can you print this for us? Or so it's just kind of like having a larger community around us when we are a smaller organization. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is like our partnership growth, because the big thing is that they are constructing us our own custom space right now. So we had to move out of the public library in October, and we're in a temporary space. And the Tacoma Public Library has the second floor is going to be a whole community space. So they're like completely renovating the whole floor. And there's going to be multiple nonprofit tenants in that floor. But for Tacoma Tool Library, we have talked to them about what we want. And so they're putting in like a garage door for us. We're going to have a space that we can use large tools with ventilation. We'll have an office. We're going to have like specialized, make sure we have enough outlets for when we do the fix it nights, we can plug in everything. So that's like a major thing with the partnership, is that they want us to be there. And so they're also building us a space. And we had about 1,400 square feet when we were just kind of plopped in the second floor. But we are adding 1,000 square feet. So we are also like growing in how much space we have, which is very exciting. And then we will also be able to have a makerspace wood shop, which we have always wanted to have. And we just haven't had the space, but now we will once they get done with construction. And then we've talked about so much of future joint programming. So things of the sort like the Tacoma Public Library is creating their own makerspace when they reopen, but they're going to be focused on like 3D printing and more kind of tech side, where our makerspace will be focused more on like wood shop stuff. So it's just a very good like opportunity to be in a library and be supported and be part of the community as well. Because this space will also have classroom space for us, and it will also have like a culinary kitchen that we can all use. Yeah, so that's just kind of the idea of how our partnership had ended up with being in the public library.
Thank you so much, Sharayah.
Yeah.
It is so interesting to hear these two different examples, because you have slightly different models. And so I'm kind of interested in how they compare as well. But I encourage folks, if you have questions, to put them in the chat or to raise your hand and we can call on you. We've got 8 minutes and 41 seconds. So lots of time for discussion. I see Dana has been kind of diligently responding to some of the more like operational questions in the chat. And I'm really interested in this idea of I'm curious that you brought up maker spaces, Sharayah, as a kind of something that you're developing and something that the library already has, because one of the things that I've found studying repair cafes for over the years is that you know, maker spaces in libraries were really quick to catch on, and a lot of libraries really kind of jumped on that makerspace idea. But repair cafes in many ways are quite similar, and like different repair initiatives, tool libraries, but they seem to have been a bit slower to catch on. And I wonder whether anyone has kind of thoughts about why that is, or reflections on kind of what the similarities or differences are between those two kinds of events.
I would say with the difference between the kind of repair cafes and maker spaces is, at least like in our experience with being in the public library, is maker spaces are kind of self-directed. And it's kind of like, here's a 3D printer, we'll help you use it, but go do your own thing. Or here's a sewing machine, you want to know how to use it, go and do your own thing. So I think that's kind of like one portion, whereas repair cafes are, you know, it's not like go and do something. No, we're all helping each other. And then we're also using a whole bunch of other tools that may be not something you would want to have around a book, which is something that we always talk about. Is we're like, okay, yes, we're using tools in the library all the time. Sometimes people are soldering. Sometimes there's, I mean, not like they do like tons of welding, but sometimes there's something like that. And so I think that is one thing that is also a learning process with the Tacoma Public Library, to kind of talk about like, yes, I understand the types of things that we do you may not feel comfortable with being around books, but then we just need to come up with what are the ways that we will be okay with them. We have taken our our repair cafes, we call Fix It Night, and we do them weekly. But we have also taken them to other library branches, and it kind of depends on the library. We've had some libraries that are just like, yeah, sure, you're okay, just go ahead and set up, like just plug in whatever you need. And we're like, if we bring a circular saw and we create sawdust, is that okay? And they're like, yeah, just bring a shop vac. Like, so sometimes they're like, yeah, sure, cool, okay. And other times they're like, I don't know about that. So I think there's also like that just education of what we're using and how it affects things, and what is the kind of like liability and safety on it. But we will, when we reopen, we will have our Fix It Nights every single Thursday in the library. We will have our sewing program 2 times a month in the library. And then they will have their own maker space as well. So we'll kind of have both, the come in and do stuff on your own, as well as we will help you to do stuff.
Wow, it's all happening at Tacoma Public Library.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Dana, do you have anything to add around?
Well, I can just say with our new libraries, they all had plans for maker spaces, and they do have that capability, but I think a lot of it is staffing, you know, unlike, you know, we don't have dedicated, I mean, our programmers are into that. So they have been using it as sort of a programming makerspace, but not on a regular basis, keeping something open just because we don't have the staff to watch the space or to control the space any. So, you know, I was putting in the chat here about, you know, what if somebody wanted to donate a sewing machine? I said, well, our environmental specialist programmer who's working with the Zero Waste Washington from the Midnight Cafes is asking for sewing machines for his program. So use sewing machines for his program, basic sewing machines for kids to use. So we could use it during that time period, but I didn't really want to make things like that check outable because you're not supervising it as much. So that's the same thing with maker spaces, you know, they have to be supervised to really be used all the time for the most part. And we don't have the staffing right now. So ours are probably underutilized. So.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. I think also there was kind of like a lot of money around for makerspaces at one point in time, and they were very exciting.
Mhm.
And there's kind of I've always been interested in makerspaces as like a place where the emphasis is on making new stuff,
Mhm.
and repair events and tool libraries as this kind of like you're learning similar skills, but it's kind of towards, what do we already have? What can we, how can we fix our own things that we already have, and trying to generate the same kind of excitement around that thing. Are there any questions from folks in the room? Yes, I see Nancy.
Hello, everyone. I've enjoyed hearing what you've had to say, and I'm learning a lot. I and one of my colleagues on the sustainability committee here in Montour Falls, New York, we're planning to run repair cafes. It'll be our first venture into doing this. And we're partnering with the libraries, although we're planning to have them at the firehouse. And we have watched the How to Start a Repair Cafe that Susie Fromer from Hudson Valley in New York has run. So we just are looking for information, about getting started, what kinds of items to have people bring in to repair, how to recruit our repair coaches, marketing this whole thing, the waivers, insurance. That was interesting on the last call that I participated in. So I guess anything that you would have that would be helpful to us on starting this in partnership with the library, which is why I wanted to sit in on this talk, but at the firehouse, because that will allow us to have both sort of a messier and a cleaner area to work for repairs.
Oh, I see we just have 30 seconds left, so one piece of pithy advice.
Okay.
I would just say to whoever you are working with at the firehouse, since it's the firehouse instead of the library, it may be, may be able to be a little bit messier, but just to be like very clear about like what tools you are